Hi there and welcome to my studio. My name is Gideon, also known as Gideon Slide, and I am a creatively fit coach. Come join me in my studio as we play and have fun at the canvas and in our art journals. What are you waiting for? Here we go. Right. We've now come to the exciting part of assimilating everything in our diary. So I've got my diary out and some of the elements that I want to play with today. So just to recap, we have created these beautiful jelly prints and printing moments. I just wanted to show you again how beautiful this is going to go with our inspiration piece. Forgive my little Dutch hound girls that's playing in the background. So that's all part of the creative fun. So just going through some of these moments again. Look how beautiful this is dried. Again, repeating the colors of our theme today. Isn't that just stunning? So if we continue to page, this is one of the prints that we did on the jelly plate. This is one of the prints we did on that very thin tissue paper. The one I did with the squiggly squiggles. That one that sort of mimics some of the vibe feeling I got from the Balinese writing. Here is that fantastic tissue paper that I did with some of the oranges and magentas, but also look at the interesting background negative print that it did on the wax paper. So that can also be an interesting piece. And then this was the big one we did with the inks as well on the tissue paper. You see how light that is and just the beautiful mix of color. And again, look at the very interesting paper negative print of the ink that went onto the wax paper. So this can all be used as background material for our project. So I'm going to put this aside over there so that it is accessible when we need them, and then we will see how we're going to put things together. So like I said, this is some of the photographs I took, and I just sized them. This is a pillar in one of the temples, just to create some interesting elements that can be used. You can cut it out, you can tear it out. Again, this is a heaven's gate that enters one of the temple areas. I would like to do a mono print of that one day. This is just some beautiful, I thought that was an interesting combination of the leaves and the blue water. It's literally a shot I took over a water lily pond. Here we have some bamboo. Isn't that just gorgeous? These are some of the fish that I had in one of the ponds at one of the temples, or was it the royal gardens that we visited, and I just put this into dream state AI, and I asked it to just create something new with it, because there was so much junk on the ground in the water on the bottom of this little dam, that I thought that ruined the shot, because I quite like the movement of the fish. So just adding a bit of a color filter and a bit of a technique, it changed it all. So now you focus on the fish and not on some of the garbage that's lying in the water. People use it as a lucky pond. Then another tip I can give you is to size some of your images. Like here's a smaller version of the big one I'm going to work with today, just to get a bit of a variety in your shapes. This is literally a photo I took of some of that stonework, and then I enhanced it with one of my creative apps. I think I used Paint app for this one. And it becomes an original piece of art that you can play with. You'll remember in my first episode I also did this tissue stain, and I wanted to play with that. And I'm coming back to this beautiful tissue paper that I have because this pattern is also something that reminds me of Bali in some way. So one of the ways that you can tell your story in your art journal is to decide what it is that you want to focus on. And right now, I want to focus on telling the story of my husband and I and our trip in Bali, our honeymoon, and I want to focus in the first few chapters of my art journal on the color story, just telling the story of the colors. It's the first memories that I have of Bali, and I really just want to capture some of those vivid moments of color that I have. So these are all prints that I did when I just started off experimenting with my Gelli plate and what is possible, and I thought that all of these elements on a color spectrum goes into my diary. So without further ado, I am gonna start a new page, and I just wanted to add a bit more wax paper to protect my previous page, and here we are. Now you can see what I mean with my art journal, that I literally have pages where I did a bit of a doodle exercise that's in the background. I don't necessarily want to keep it, it's not that important for me, but now it becomes important to tell the story that I want to tell. So I'm just going to dig all the way back into this stash of mine, and forgive me if I'm rummaging around a little bit. Where did I put my very most important element that I want to use? I'm going to get to it now. As I page through this all. This is the exciting thing about collage. Now I want to encourage you, when you collage, to surround yourself with the elements that you choose for that particular project or page, so that you can draw inspiration from it. So I'll pre-cut this because I just wanted to make sure that this is going to work. So this is one of the examples that I said of the stonework with a doorway, and I decided to use my little blade cutter that I have with a little bit of a blade, just to cut the doors open so that in the collage it can open. Now I don't want that in the background, I want me and my beautiful husband in the background. So that's a photo that we took, and if I place this over it and I open the doors, then there we will be. So I think that is such a lovely way to do an interesting page in your art journal, and for me a way to explore my journey in Bali with my husband. But now we already start. This is the idea, this is the inspiration, and here are some of the problems. The picture I have of us fits nicely in this little alcove, but you can see some of the background. So I will need something in the background to just bring the image together. And this is again where you dig into some of your papers and you find some of the things that you created that you know will bring all these elements together. So I did play with a lot of these papers today. So this one I thought color wise might work very well in the background. So if we do that, can you see what happens is it just unifies the design. The background disappears, but everything that I use on this page, I really want to use something that I've made that contributes to this collage moment. So that could work, but I also think this could work just as a blue background, but I do like that design there. Let's just place it on a bit more of the blue. Let's see, decisions. I actually like the other background more. It was less noisy, and it really, I want the photograph to stand out more. So the next choice that we have to make is, where are we going to place these elements? And if this is our main focus, I do like that this particular collage element fits most of the page. Now, are we going to do it at the top there, or are we going to do it at the bottom here? These are the choices. Are we going to let some of it come over? It's also interesting, don't you think? Because then this becomes the landscape. So it's not a page and a page, but rather a whole. So I'm thinking that might be a good start. So before we can put any of these elements down, I want to just begin to quiet down some of this background by using some of this paper that we have here. Now, a lot is going to go on top. So let me just basically plan the layout here so I can basically see how much of this paper will be needed. So I'm just gonna give myself a rough cut here. To begin, let me use my metal ruler, which I have now misplaced somewhere. Forgive me. It can't be too far away, or maybe it can. Let me just find it. Right, I'm back with my metal ruler. That just makes my life easier to tear some of these pages a little bit more accurately. If you were looking for a collage expert, I'm not that person. I am learning along with you guys through trial and error, and hopefully that way you give yourself permission to also simply try through trial and error to see what you can create. So some of the elements work, some of it doesn't, but each time you learn something and you become more and more attuned to using the design principles, making sure there's balance and proportion, and so on and so forth. I also quite like it to work a little bit outside my pages, simply because I'm not an expert of absolutely fitting everything in 100%. Okay, so roughly around there. Here we go. So never throw any of these papers away, because this can save you on another page where you might need an element of design to work with. So I just want to get my wax paper out and place it inside my sheet, so that when we work on it, I don't paint or glue any of the underneath pages to each other. So this way the wax paper just helps me to protect my project. Right, now again, just looking at my placement here, that looks perfect. Where am I now? Okay, cool. So now it has come to that stage of our collaging project where we will glue this down. So I'm just going to use this old brush of mine, and I've got my matte medium. It is acrylic medium, and that becomes my glue. So I like to just hold one side of the page for now and just add some of the paint, the glue, the medium, whatever you want to call it. And this also strengthens my page as I begin to add some of these elements to my page. So you can see it's a very creative process. I'm not the neatest of artists on the planet, but I like the messy mess. I enjoy the creative process of figuring things out, feeling the textures of the paper under my fingers and just working it down. Now it's quite warm here in South Africa, so my medium dries very quickly on me, so it allows me to work quite fast. I also like to use an old loyalty card or credit card or something like that to just get some of these elements down. I think that needs a little bit more. There's always space for more. And then I overdo it, which is also fine. So I can add a layer of my gel medium on top, and that acts then as a sealant. To my collage element. This is still a little bit too dry here for me, so I'm going to just lift that up a little bit and just go in there with my brush. Here we go. Like I said, it is a learning curve. As the glazing element dries, I've made a grand mess here. Just gonna go slower and just allow the medium to penetrate. I think I didn't put enough down at the bottom, but eventually it will stick. Right. I'm going to just give this a quick blast with my hairdryer, and then I will be right back. Right, it's not completely dry, but it's dry enough for me to continue. Now I still want to deal with some of this old noise in the background, so I do want to cover that up as well. So I thought of playing with this beautiful piece of tissue paper. Now some of that texture of that doodle might shine through, so this might not, forgive me, I just kicked my camera. When you're in the creative zone, I need something more opaque that will cover that up. So let me just look at some of the elements that I planned to use in this design. Let me just see here. Oh yes, this was one of my Braille pages that I used my brayer roller on as I cleaned between Gelli print sessions, and I absolutely loved in the end the combination of the colors on here. So forgive me, never throw anything away, because you never know exactly when that piece of paper that you've worked on, or that print, or that experiment that went a little bit pear-shaped, that you didn't feel it didn't quite work out, don't throw anything away, because we will use it at a later stage. And now this is thick enough. You can literally see I had an old print that didn't work for me on the background, but now this does work for me. And I'm thinking this can be a very nice background page to cover up some of this creative exercise I did in the background. So I'm thinking I want to use this part of it that's nice and vibrant, because as this will go over it, I feel that the colors are complementary and it will be a nice moment in the background. So this is also quite a thick piece of paper with printing on both sides. So you will see now exactly why you need to cover the back with some of wax paper, because I want to go slightly over my page so I can fussy cut it later nice and tidy when that is in the background. So for that, I think I'm going to use my gel medium, which is a bit thicker. I do feel, however, that I need to tear. Tearing is part of collaging, and that's why a ruler like this is always nice. Let me now just decide, I don't want all this white on the background. Let's see how this is going to work. We can always leave a bit of space for something else as well in the background. Quite like that. I'm going to take this section off at the bottom as well. And I think that last little bit can stick over, and we'll see how much of that we'll cut off. And so I can place this right at the top now and cover over here, and then I would have covered most of this background noise that I feel will not complement my final page. So I'm going to put the gel medium on the back of this piece of paper, and I know that I'm going to need it on the entire sheet. So let's get some gel medium squeezed on there. I'm going to put on quite a bit because I know I want this heavy piece of paper to stick down, and my gel medium has thickened up slightly. I'm just going to work it in. And then I'm going to spread it out to the edges. Now again, I'm just going to go a little bit off camera here on my wax paper to just reach the edges there. So forgive me. My little table is now quite filled with collage elements. think my metal ruler that I was looking for literally just fell out of its hiding place. I had to go find another one. And now to remember what plan you had, let me push this right to the top and just outside of my page, and then we can work this down. So when you allow your collage page to dry, you can put some wax paper on your work. Obviously make sure that there's no wet paint first, and then put some wax paper on there and put some heavy books on it just to give it some weight, and then allow it to dry overnight before you add another page to your art journal. So that way you ensure that your elements stay down and you get a very nice flat surface to work on. Okay, we are making progress. Alrighty then. Now I think I want to just put down this main element so that we can work around it with our follow-up choices. So the next thing I need to then place is our photograph. So I just want to do that and just find the spot where I need to place my photograph of my beautiful husband and I. Just get some of this excess water off my brush and just work my matte medium on here nicely. And then put down our photograph. Now remember, your matte medium will dry completely see-through, and it will form a little bit of a polished protective layer on your paper, and in that way it will preserve it. It becomes almost archival, so years later when you page through your art journal, everything is protected and sealed very nicely. I don't mind the texture. If you're somebody that don't like the texture, there's of course other methods that you can collage with. Do experiment and see which method works best for you. Some artists just uses Pritt stick, and they make sure that their collage elements are nothing thicker than copy paper, or they have various strengths of Pritt sticks kind of glue, and I just stick it down very nicely. So obviously be very careful if things are wet that you don't tear your collage elements. I'm going to just heat this with a bit of my dryer. I think before I continue, I'm going to give this a good moment to dry, and then I'll be right back. Right, I feel it's dry enough so we can continue to now put down our main element. And unfortunately, I think I've placed it too high to where I wanted it originally. But that's okay, it's all part of the learning curve. So let's reposition it, and I think I like it there. So we will need to solve some of the issues down here, which we can tackle with some other elements. So I'm quite happy with that placement. So I'm going to turn this around and put some acrylic medium on there. Let me just create some space for myself here on the right hand side between all these other elements, and then we'll take it from there. Here we go. So yeah, it's always an organizational matter. So let's get going, let's get gluing, like they say. Now be mindful, I don't want these little doors to have any medium on them, because I want them to be able to open. Otherwise that would be pointless. So I'm just careful not to put my gel medium or my acrylic medium on the doors that I want to be able to open. Okay. Here we go. I have to just see where my husband is. There we are. And then we can try our bestest to place this element with as little as possible bubbles and creases. Like so. Right, so let's get some more gel medium going on this side. Some gel mediums come out more like a cream, so it's nice. You can just dispense some on a palette and you can work with it. But this thinner one I prefer to keep in the bottle, otherwise it's just going to dry on me and then I'm going to waste so much acrylic medium. It's affordable, but it's also not cheap. So cheap. It's affordable, but it's not cheap. Just using my credit card to just come here into the crease of my page so that there's no air bubble there. And let's go ahead and add a bit of the acrylic medium on top. And then any places where the page is still, or the paper is still lifting from the page, you can just work that acrylic medium in there and seal this beautiful main element for today's collage. Awesome. I'm so sorry, my dear beloved husband. I did lift some of the ink off your face with a sticky finger. I apologize. Just seal it a bit more. There we go. It's going to look like he has a light moment on his face. It does bring the light into my life, so I do appreciate and love my husband very much. Without him, I don't think I would have made it thus far. At least it feels like it was easier to get where I am in my creative journey and in my life with his support and faith in me. So that is just so beautiful. Okay, so while that is drying, I wanted to just show you some of the other elements that I brought to today's session that I wanted to play with, that I felt is also telling the story. I love these water lilies. There's water lily features practically everywhere you go in Bali, especially closer to temple sites or whatever, because it is such a spiritual element. So I thought of again, this is one of the photos I took that I edited on one of these apps. I think this one was Paint as well. So I wanted to bring in this water lily pond over here and maybe just use an aspect of this. So I wanted to see, maybe we should cut it rather than tear it. Sometimes cutting is nicer, sometimes tearing is nicer. And I want to just bring this together here. So I might cut or tear this corner so that it has a bit more of an organic finish. I don't like the hard corners to be repeated everywhere. So now it's a nice time to bring some of these other elements together, and I'm just sort of fussy cutting. Fussy cutting just means that you are very mindful to cut out an element exactly. And I'm going to skip that top leaf so that this water lily becomes the connection point down here. So telling the stories of Bali, I think for me right now, like I said, it's all about capturing the colors, the mood, the energy, the feeling that I had when I saw these places, and what it smelled like, and the excitement of exploring something new that you've never seen before from a culture that you know nothing about. You've only heard rumors or stories, and then to see how that culture starts to permeate your being, almost like a good cup of tea. Becomes part of who we are, and it enriches you in ways that you never knew possible. That's so cute. I like that. Let's see if we bring this down. How far does this go? Okay. I might have to bring it over a little bit. Don't want to cover that up entirely. This is what I mean. I think I must tear that so that it doesn't look so straight there. I'm tearing away from myself because I don't want a white edge there. So I almost want it to look like the leaf was cut there as well. And then I think I will round that off like that. Yes, you see? Okay, cool. And now I can place it down low enough so that this white can be cut later, and I can bring it out far enough so that that edge becomes part of my page on the outside there. I like that. Okay, but before we commit, let's just leave that there and think a little bit beyond that. What else did I bring with me over here? Now I had everything neatly stacked in little piles here next to me, but during our printing session, some of these things got a little bit disrupted. Let me see what else I have here. Oh yes, this is one of the things I thought could look nice if I maybe cut out the circle as a design element there, but I will do that off camera just to save some time. And this blue links beautifully with the blue over there, and maybe a blue circle there just as an element can look pretty to give some focus over there. Okay, so we'll look at that, but now we still have some blank space on that side, and I think this might be a great time to bring in some of this tissue paper to just color the edge over there. And I'm gonna find it, but there were small little elements of lotus flowers lying here somewhere in my pile that I'm gonna find for us now, that I want to maybe use on top of this as a little bit of a focal point. So I'm going to pause the video and find those elements and cut out the circle, and then when we're back we're going to put these things together. Right, I finally found the elements I was looking for. It fell off my table and it was hiding from me. So these were little elements that I took a photo of, and I just repeated it and I made it quite small so that I can use that as an element somewhere where I need to just bring a little bit of finish or attention to details. And I also cut out my circle because I don't want to cover up everything on the underneath. So I also cut out the center, but don't throw it away because this can also become a beautiful design element. Right, so recap. This is where we at. We're going to have some of these lotus flowers down here. We're going to have this round design element over the back. And I want to use some of this tissue paper now to just complete this page on the outside of the perimeter and maybe some of it down at the bottom. Now the tissue paper does go a bit see-through, so that is exciting. And I also don't want to use a lot of the orange, I just want to use some of the orange so that the orange of our main design does all the talking. So I just want to see roughly where I want to tear. Now I'm going to use my watercolor paintbrush. Now it's just a little chamber filled with water, and it's going to give me the ability to tear this tissue paper in an interesting way where I can incorporate everything I want to incorporate, and it will give me a bit of a cleaner cut because it again softens the tissue paper, and I get a nice organic tear so that it doesn't look like I cut it with scissors. Here we go. So let's take this away. Now you can see what I mean with bringing this design element inwards like this. How it's going to help me just soften the outline around this very straight edge picture that we've got, and just color in the rest of the page with some of the inks that I use that's complementary to my picture. So let's get this down. I'm going to just do this in stages. And my wax paper is protecting the edge of my page here. While I place my tissue paper where I want it. That's gorgeous. Like that. Let's fold this inwards like this, and then we can, I'm going to let this cross over my page. Just using my wax paper to protect my edges. And fold that over and bring that in nicely. I'm going to tear this away. I should have done that, but you know, we tear as we go. Here we go. I'm just going to dip that into that crease of my page and paint that over. That's perfectly fine. Like I said, I'm not worried about any of the pieces sticking over my page. We'll cut that later when it's dry. And the tissue paper is very absorbent. So putting a layer at the bottom and on top like this helps to seal it. So I can see where I need to put a little bit more. So this glaze medium looks quite blue under my lamp, but it's completely see-through, I promise you. But I do think that it has a little bit of UV protectant in it. I don't know, I'm guessing, because that's usually what makes things shine blue like this, like a blue light protection, UV protection. So that will protect your collage or your art so that it doesn't fade. Again, like I said, be very careful when the tissue is wet not to paint too hard, and then you will tear your tissue paper. Right, that's already coming together so nicely. I'm so happy. Okay, so let's deal with this little lotus here on the side as well. Just want to give myself just a little bit more space. Sorry guys. Over here, I hope you can still see. I think you can. Just to put some of the acrylic medium on the bottom part of my collage element. Then be very ready with that placement over there and work it down. Again, you can use the printing paper is a bit stronger, so I like to just scrape out any air bubbles. I don't mind a bit of texture, but I don't want everything to be texturized. So that's down, it's looking good. This page is coming together really nicely. Let's do the same with the circle. Again, it's just photocopy paper that I did my gel printing session on. So I'm making sure that there's enough acrylic medium on the back here. I'm going to place it nicely in the center there and press it down. Oopsie daisy, that tissue paper was still very wet. No problem. Just allowing the acrylic medium to soften the paper on the underneath while I'm working more of it in on the side. So I'm scraping my brush off it. It will fill those little gaps. It can be quite a sticky finger experience, regardless of what paint you decide to work with. Paint, or I mean glue. You can see I'm coming from the paint side of the studio, but sticky fingers is part of the whole journey. Okay, so I'm going to allow this to dry, but while this is drying, I was thinking of using these beautiful Buddhist mandalas of the lotus flower. to bring some interest. And then it's a repetition of the lotus flower we have down here to maybe just bring a focus point up there. And again, the circles of the lotus flowers as well as the squares is repeated all over this page. So we have square elements, we've got round elements, and I'm repeating that shape, and that then becomes a design element all on its own. We're using the design principle of repetition. So then it looks a little bit more planned out and well thought out, rather than just happenstance or a lucky moment. So I'm just going to cut these squares out, and while I do that, I quickly want to tell you this very interesting thing that I learned in Bali. You will find when you arrive in Bali, you will see all of the statues are covered with a black and white check material. You will see this at all the temples as well, all over Bali. And I had to stop and ask one of the residents, what is the meaning of the black and white checkered designs? And it was interesting to hear that in Bali, they consider the black and white square a representation, or their version of yin and yang, dark and light, good versus evil, and so forth. And they believe that using both of these brings balance to the universe. Isn't that beautiful? Balance. Balance is very important. So the black and white squares is a sacred cloth. I've got one upstairs on my altar as well. I will see if I can take a photograph and add it to this video so you can see what I mean. And I think that is important to repeat or start to bring that story into my journaling. Oh, that's so cute. I like that. Yay! I'm not even gonna carry on further worrying about what to do with this corner. I have found my joy over there. Now, where is my brush? Here is my brush. And I do think I'm gonna now dispense a little bit of my acrylic medium into my little bowl. It's just easier to paint and stick at the same time. So afterwards I might come back into this and enhance it a little bit, something like that. Mindful that my tissue paper underneath is still not completely dry, so I must be very gentle with the touch. So I'm adding my acrylic medium to the underneath of my element. Ew, I'm shaking so much from pure excitement. Last one. Yes, so everywhere you go in Bali, you will see worshippers wear the black and white print, especially on their sacred days or festive days. It's very common to see their statues of Ganesh covered with this beautiful black and white print. And also the checkered square design is something that you will find at all the temple sites as well. So they do like that very delineated square checkered kind of design as a repetition of that pattern that we have in Bali. I love that. Now we still have this little strip down here that needs to be dealt with. So I thought I must return again to this tissue paper because it will blend so nicely with what we already have there. And remember, this is going to be cut off, so that will have a nice clean edge. So I literally just need a little bit of this down here, and I think I'm going to use this organic strip that I've got there already. Now I just dipped my brush in my water and now it's too wet, so I'm just using this tissue paper to get rid of the excess water. Come back to this part down here, just want to make sure that you guys can see, and I'm going to apply my medium down here and bring just the edge of this tissue paper in there. Oopsie daisy, we need a bit more there. There we go. No, we didn't. There we go. No, we didn't. Oh, it's not important. You won't even notice that. Like, give yourself permission to play and have fun and not to be a perfectionist at everything in life, you know. Allow for some creative chaos in your life. I think it's good therapy for perfectionists to maybe say to yourself from the beginning as you work on your art journal that you want to just have a bit of a practice to break away from perfectionism, because perfectionism can sometimes limit you in your creative projects, and you will then sometimes, especially for people with extreme perfectionism disorder, I like to call it, completely refrain from creating at all, because you have this extreme and realistic hard expectation of yourself to do absolutely everything with precision and perfectionism. If that's you, I'm speaking to you and say, you know what, just chill a little bit, give yourself a little bit of a breather, and allow for some happy, creative, colorful accidents to happen, because you will never experience that if you want to control every aspect of your creative process. So I think our second page of our Bali journal is complete. I'm going to allow this to dry, and I'm just going to neatly cut my page out. I will take a photograph for you. The celebratory moment of this is, of course, when you open these doors and you see me and my beautiful husband in Bali having a drink. One of the drinks that we had there a lot was their mojitos. The mint and the lemons in Bali is exceptional. It is so full of flavor. It is the sweetest limes I've ever had. It is a green lime with black specks on it. It's so colorful and it's so yummy and tasty and refreshing and uplifting. So we had their mint and lime mojitos almost 5 times a day. It was just so delicious. So these beautiful little doors is just protecting us, and this is a way to welcome us into this beautiful world of Bali that we've gone to together, and hopefully we will be able to visit that again soon one day. And I'm so excited to see what you guys are going to create in your art journal. So do drop me a comment. Join me on my creative group on Facebook. It is called The Creative Heart. I will put a link in the description of this video, because there I share a lot of other processes as well, and that's a unique platform where you can share your progress art with us as well, so that we can continue to support you on your journey as well. Also remember to subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, because even though you've subscribed, you might not be notified that I've got a new video available for you. It is my intention to have a new video up every Friday, so I'm going to try and keep to that time schedule to the best of my ability. Right, so I cut the pages out. It's not completely dry yet, but it was dry enough for me to cut it out. I must admit I'm not as brilliant at it. I think I might need a better tool. I just have an ordinary scissor like this, and it's not very easy. So Maybe if you know of a tool that could make my life easier, you can drop me a comment and tell me. But I just wanted to come and show you some of the issues that I still have with this page before I completely want to move on. So I didn't place my collage element absolutely to the edge. So now I'm left with this piece of white paper over there. And I also by accident cut my page. I thought I was on the tissue paper and I weren't. But as we go on to the next page and when we collage over here, I will fix this element almost like a bit of a plaster, and then that will be secure again. So I think overall this page works very well, but I do think that there is maybe some things we can do to resolve some of the issues we have. I definitely think I should work there with an element, and I have decided to show you how you can use paint either to enhance or fix an aspect of your painting. Now I really just need some color to fix what I've done there, so I decided to just use this light green acrylic paint and just paint it over this white just to break that up a little bit. This is a bit of a transparent green. I just want something there that will match this element in color a little bit better, and then I'm just going to painterly bring some of that green onto this element so that it's not completely just on one part of it. Just repeating some of the color, bringing some of the green into this part of it so that that doesn't stand out so much. That creates a bit of a horizon line for me, so I'm quite happy with the top part of it. I also have these little tears in the page down here that I think is a little bit outstandish. Where is my other bowl? I want to just use a little bit of my reindeer antelope brown, reindeer brown. I'm being silly. Let me just grab another brush, and I'm just going to use some of this antelope brown on these areas that I didn't quite like, just to blend it in a little bit more. I don't think it will hurt to take some of it up over that part of it. And I also brought some rubbing gold. It's called Magic Touch from Heritage Old Gold. I haven't touched this in years, so I don't even know if the product will still work, but I am just going to use a brush and see. It should still be fine because it does have a bit of an oil base to it, like a shoe polish. And I just want to marry these elements into the page here a little bit more with this rubbing gold. Just give it some character. Now if you're a scrapbooking kind of crafter, you might have so much more amazing inks and stains and dyes and glues and guns and cutters and papers than me, and you might know a better way to do things. So you're always welcome to share with me, and I'm happy to learn. I'm a self-taught artist, so I think one aspect I want to say is that I think most artists are self-taught, so I'm not saying it to put a little naughty badge around my neck. What I am saying is that I had very little tutoring, so I experimented, um, and figured things out until it worked for me. And therefore, some of my methods or approaches to certain projects or whatever might not always be the the best way to go at it, or the most professional way to achieve results. So I've never claimed to be a professional artist. I am an artist because I taught myself to create art, and it's a very personal journey. So what I am saying though is, when you allow yourself to experiment a little bit and to try things out, you might be surprised at how fast you learn and develop your own personal style and skill. Whereas people that get professionally trained, I find sometimes it takes longer for them to find their style or their personal expression, because it can be occasionally, not always. I don't want to generalize. It can be that some artists are, when they get their training, either through schooling or going to university or whatever, you get critiqued quite a lot, and it can be so easy to become, a copy of your professor, or your school's, claim to fame soon becomes part of your identity. That, I find that some artists say that they stop creating altogether because of those high standards and harsh critiques. So if you're one of those artists that stop creating because you feel you don't have the strength now to, put in all the work and to make things look super professional, maybe give yourself permission not to always be end product orientated, but rather process orientated, and just give yourself permission to just have fun and to create again, and not to just sit on the sidelines and look at other people's art and say, I wish I had the time or the space or the whatever to create like that. Knowing full well that you can, but you just don't want to give yourself the time or the permission because of fear of failure or fear of success. Sometimes it's the other way around. I don't think it will do much to this copy paper, but maybe just age it a little bit for me so that it doesn't completely look like white copy paper when you flip it open, that it does have some kind of vibe of sacredness and age to it. Now I could probably use something like coffee or tea, or just some of my other acrylic inks. I am planning a trip to the art supply store in the near future, so I'm looking to play with a little bit of distress ink and things like that, see what's available, and then add it to my collage experience and project. And you can always come back to a page if you've got a new interesting material, or you've printed something exciting that you didn't have access to before, and then you can come and add to a page. It doesn't mean because I say it's done that it's done. There's a lot of fussing about that can happen, but it's not always necessary. So just adding a little bit of the gold just ages spots on this collage beautifully for me, and I quite like how that unifies some of the elements. This white is not standing out as much anymore. I do think now that I've made it green, it might look better if I put some of this tissue paper over it, just to camouflage that a little bit more, or maybe even do a little bit of painting with this blue, which I think is a better solution. So let's add some of this blue to my remaining what is it called, antelope brown, reindeer brown. I don't know where I come on reindeer. And just negative paint and see if we can suggest maybe where the water would have been. Take that over and enhance some of those lines, bringing some of this color in there. It's not necessary, but you can. Looks like the ink is rejected. Where I've put the gold polish because it's ink based, but that's no crisis. I will just allow that to dry, but you can already see, just repeating some of the negative spaces around the leaves that we have here, automatically the brain completes the story. It says this picture carries on there. It is not bothered with the details at the edge because the focus is pulled into this little secret door area that I think is really cute. Now I could possibly add 2 little doorknobs there, but I don't think it will be authentic because that's not originally there in Bali. But the idea of the doorway is what is exciting to me. I do think, however, I'm going to get some maybe I must use the same color right now. Let's just see. Let's just see. It might get rejected because I've put the polish there, but it might just work, and I won't know if it will work if I don't try. You can always paint over it again if you think it doesn't work. Let's try this side as well. I did say in the beginning this is highly experimental, didn't I? That's cool. I'm gonna allow that to dry. It already looks better to me because it's not white, and now that gold patina just gave it some age. So I'm gonna let it dry completely so that I can close the doors and then put a book on it so that it doesn't curl up like that. But I think this layer of acrylic ink and old gold rub on paste has now sealed this little piece of page for the little doorways, actually strengthening this element. Going forward, it won't be so thin and flimsy. So that is all a great idea. So I hope that this revisiting of this page has helped you see how I resolve some of the final issues that I had on my page, and how a multimedia approach can give you some solutions to your collage as you begin to journey with me in this process. So I'm looking forward to our next episode, and check out my previous episodes where we start this journey, and I'll speak to you guys next week. Bye bye for now.